This journal cover is a little more than it appears. At first, you might notice this really pretty open spine, but this cover also hides some secrets. The front and back panels both open up, and they have hidden journaling space inside. I'm April from Giggle Glitter Graphics, and today I'm going to show you how to make the secret journaling spaces in the front and back covers, as well as how to assemble this open spine binding. So let's get started. For the front cover, I have two pieces of chipboard measuring 8.5 by 5.5 inches. This chipboard is 2 millimeters thick, which is very important. This is a bookbinding chipboard. I also have 4 magnets, each 2 millimeters thick and about 12 millimeters wide. I'm going to start off by grabbing a pencil and I'm going to mark these panels so I know which side is which. So this is going to be outside, front. I'm going to turn it over, secret, front, and this one will be secret, back, and we'll call it outside, back. Really, you just want to know which panels go on the outside and which panels go on the secret inside. Now I'm going to flip my panels so that the secret back and the outside front are both up, and I'm going to put secret back to the side. I'm going to grab my 4 magnets. See, they're very strong magnets. And I'm going to place them in about the corners, right like this. I'm going to use the extra magnets to hold these in place where I want them to go. You can see how jumpy these are. There we go. And I'm going to position them not too close to the edge. These are going to be hidden, so don't stress too much about the exact placement, and I'm just going to draw a circle around each one with my pencil. And now I'm going to pull these off. Next, I'm going to take my X-Acto knife and I am going to cut through this chipboard. It's going to take a minute. I do have a brand new blade in here, but I'm going to carefully just cut out this circle. So I will do one circle and then I'll just kind of get my knife in there and peel up and get that extra material out. And then if I need to go through more, I will cut through some more and just repeat that until you get a hole all the way through. Now I've got my hole all the way through, and let's check the fit for our magnet. I'm just going to grab one magnet, and this is a little bit small still. You can see I got off of my line. So I'm just going to use my blade, stick it into the hole and kind of carve out some additional material just until that magnet wants to nestle straight down in there. My hole is now big enough to fit my magnet, and I'm going to repeat that process for the second hole. All right, I have both holes cut out. My magnets are going to sit in there nice and flat. Looks good. So let me pop these out of here really quickly, and I'm going to get my other piece of cardstock, my chipboard, and I'm going to layer them. So the secret panel of the back is facing up, the outside front is facing up, and I am going to use my pre-made holes to mark out a second set of holes for my bottom back panel. And I'm going to cut these out and set my magnets inside. So I've got all of my holes cut. Now it's very important that you put your magnets in and secure them so that the correct polar sides are together so that your panel will close instead of repelling each other. So I'm going to grab 2 magnets from my stack. I'm just pulling them straight off the stack and I'm putting them straight down into my outside front panel. And I'm going to grab some Scotch tape. And I'm going to tape right over that, front and back, just to secure them in the hole. You want to make sure that they are laying nice and flat and that you don't have a bunch of torn cardboard around the edges. So you'll want to clean that up so that things are nice and flat. You don't want these to show at all after you've covered up this cardboard. All right, so outside front, tape over the magnets. I'm going to take these magnets, my last 2, place one over top of each one of these so that they stick. I'm then going to take it off, bring it over, and place it directly into the hole. This is my little trick to make sure that I have the correct polar sides So secret back is facing up. I'm putting these straight down into the hole and then securing them with Scotch tape. And here we have the moment of truth. Secret back, secret front, put them together, and they stick. Now we're ready to start making this pretty. So I'm going to grab my outside front cover, and I'm going to cover it in this velvet fabric. Now you can cover your panels in anything that you want. You can use paper or fabric or just anything you can imagine that you want to put on your journal cover. Go ahead and use that. It's not going to be a problem. Here I am just using Beacon Fabri-Tac, and I'm putting a nice layer on the outside front of my panel. And then I'm going to spread this out with this extra piece of chipboard. I did some testers, some samples, and had this left over when I was testing my magnet method. And I'm just going to spread this out. Here we go. Nice thin coat. Flip my velvet over, and I've cut this just slightly larger than my panel. I didn't want too much extra material around the edges. I'm just going to press that down firmly. Here, let me turn this so you can get a good idea of what this looks like. All right, so my velvet is glued down on that side, and then I am going to bring all of these edges in. Now, I'm not the neatest when it comes to wrapping fabric, and this velvet does have a little bit of bulk. I chose it because I thought that the velvet texture would help disguise the two panels being sandwiched together, that little bit of pile, that little bit of fluff in the fabric would, I don't know, give me some leeway if there's a bit of a gap, because you're going to put some decorations on the inside of this. So, oh, I almost forgot to cut my corner. So I'm gonna just grab and nip off these corners really quickly. All right, there we go. So glue that side down, and then repeat that for all four sides. When I go to do the second set of sides, I'm going to push in on this just to kind of get it nice and tight. Give it a little pull up and then flip it over. And then if I feel like there's just too much material here, I'm going to trim that off. You don't want a lot of bulk at the corners, because that's going to add more thickness underneath of whatever covering you put over top of this. So you want to get it as flat as possible. But since I'm using velvet, it makes it a little more challenging. I'm not worried about having perfect corners. It goes with my theme to have a little bit of tattiness around the edges. So that's not a big deal to me. All right, there we go. And if you're really unhappy with your corners, get some of those little corner covers, the little metal corner covers, and pop those on, and that'll give it a really nice finished look without any effort. So now my front has a nice velvet coating on it, and the back is ready to be decorated. I have my prototype here. I'm going to do some collage work on the back, and I'm not going to put that in this video. That's going to be a separate video on its own, because I want to show you how I make these collage pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera. All right, my panels are both covered on the outside. We've got the front outside, and then what will be the inside cover of the journal. But now we have the secret area that doesn't have any covering, and we're going to fix that. So I have printed a piece of digital paper onto cardstock. I've rounded the corners with a corner rounding punch and then used vintage photo distress ink around the edges. All right, so I've got my two inside panels, and you are also going to need something to act as a hinge so that these can open and close. I'm using a cotton fabric I picked this up at Joann Fabrics. It is one-sided, so I cut a second strip. I used a little bit of Oohoo glue stick. I just dabbed it at a couple places, and I stuck it to the back of the larger piece. You're only going to see a tiny strip of this, but I felt like it gave a more finished look. I'm going to grab my prototype. And you can see here where that little bit of metallic shows through. When I originally did this, you could just see the plain cotton backing, and I didn't like how it looked. But with the gold, it looks more finished, and I feel like it disguises that hinge when you're looking at it from the outside. So let's shift our panels slightly to either side. We're going to butt our two chipboard panels right up against each other. Make sure they are even at the top and the bottom. And then I'm going to place my hinge with the extra strip down. Now, if your material is printed on both sides, totally fine. You can just use one double-sided piece. I'm only doubling up because I wanted this metallic print on both sides, because you will see a little bit of it. So I'm going to center that up. You know what, let's just move these entirely off, and I'm going to use my Beacon Fabri-Tac. It's going to glue that fabric to the chipboard really well, and I'm just going to kind of eyeball, not going all the way to the edge, but I'm going pretty close, just to kind of stick this down on this side. Line everything back up, press that down. Now this is cut shorter than my panels, so you can see. There we go. So it's not poking out at the top and the bottom. I wanted it to be tucked nicely under there. And then same thing on this side. I'm going to glue under this just to secure it and glue pretty close to that edge, but not all the way up to it. Line up my panels and press that down. And that is going to create that hinge, and you will see a little bit of that on the other side. Now to secure this, I'm going to attach the cardstock panels right on top. So I've got lots of glue. Center that up. And there's my second panel. Let's just check that everything is lined up. It looks pretty good, nice and even. See that cute little detail. And now this is ready to decorate or just attach to your journal and decorate later. Now this was just the front cover. You're going to need a back cover. You can make it a simple single panel and just decorate it and do it normally, or you can make a second version of this. Just remember to flip all of your pieces the other way. So the magnets are going to go on the leading edge. It's just how you mark the pieces. This is going to be the back outside, secret inside, and then back inside. And your magnets are still along the same side. You can see they just stick together. So you'll need a second panel if you want this effect on both the front and back of your journal. If you'd like to take a peek at how I decorated the inside of my back panel, I kept my decorations very thin, so everything is super flat in here. Nothing is bulky or sticks up, no crazy trims, little pocket. I do have a little secret journaling space here. There is a flip up, a little tuck piece in there. So you can see I've kept it very simple, but that edge kind of disappears for you. So now I have a front and a back cover, and I'm ready to start adding those pages and bind this whole thing together. So let's go over the basic construction of this spine. I'm using 4 signatures. You can use as many as you want. And I've already laced 3 of these ahead of time. I'm going to show you the process on this last one. But the method is to take a ribbon. Mine is just over 1.5 inches wide. And we're going to thread it through these strings from binding our signatures together, and that is going to hold everything together nice and neat on our journal. So the first thing we need to do is find our spacing. You're going to want 3 loops, 1 at each end, 1 in the middle, that you can pass this ribbon through. That means they're not all going to be the same size. You're going to have 3 that are larger, 1, 2, 3, and then 2 that are a little bit smaller. And I've used a lighter wax thread here, so it's a little hard to see. It kind of blends in, but I'm going to show you exactly how I plan that out. So I've cut a piece of cardstock. It's the same height as my signature, so that when it tucks inside, it butts up against both edges, and I folded it in half in both directions. I've put a little distress ink on mine so you can see what I'm doing, but that is not necessary. Next, I'm going to start marking out where my holes are going to go. So I'm going to get a ruler, and you don't want your holes to start too close to the edge. So I'm going to go, and I have a little template here. I'm going to lay this out as well as a guide. I'm going to go 1/2 inch in from each side, and I'm going to mark right along this long center line, like so. And I'm going to repeat that on this side. So that is my starting hole. Then I'm going to take my ribbon, and I'm going to place that down next to my hole, not too tight, not over it, next to the hole. Remember, this needs to go under the string, and you need enough room to make this fit in. And I'm just going to put a dot next to it on the other side, and then repeat that here. Then I'm going to go to my center line. I'm going to fold my ribbon in half. I'm going to place it against that center line, and I'm going to place a dot here, flip it over, and repeat that on the other side. right here. And that is going to give you 6 holes. And they're going to be spaced so that you can thread your ribbon through here, here, and here. Let me grab my template that I've already written out so you can see that, just in case you need a moment. And then I went ahead and punched through all of these holes with my little pokey tool. Now I'm going to be using a bookbinding kit. I have a needle, I have some wax thread. You can use any binding material you want. I've used embroidery floss, ribbon, all kinds of things. I'm just using wax thread today. And I am going to grab, this is my final signature. Now I've clipped these together, top and bottom, with little binder clips. And I'm going to place my template right inside the crease and make sure it's lined up nice and neat. I'm going to grab an additional clip and clip that inside just to hold it in place. And then I'm going to take my pokey tool and poke through each of these holes, all 6 of them. And I'm going to remove my clip on just my template. And let's grab some string. And I'm going to go 3 heights, 1, 2, 3. I like to have a little extra. Just trim that off. I'm going to grab my needle, thread my thread onto my needle, and then going to the inside of my journal, I'm going to start at the top hole and go right through. Now from here, let me pull that through. I'm going to reuse my binder clip and I'm just going to clip that right to the page to keep it in place. Now I'm just going to zigzag my way down. So I'm going to go to the next hole and go to the inside. Next hole, back to the outside. All right, we're going to go back to the inside, back to the outside, and that final hole on the bottom, back to the inside. Now we're going to do the same thing all the way back up, but be careful that when you go through these holes, you don't split your thread. So you want your needle to go through the hole, not through your string there. If you go through the string, it's going to be hard to tighten and tie your strings. So back down through. So zigzag your way all the way back to the top. All right, now we've got both of our strings on the inside. You can adjust these, you can kind of pull them if you want to adjust the lengths. So I'm going to make it fairly tight. But don't worry about it being perfectly tight because you are going to thread that ribbon through and a little bit of give is okay. So tie a gentle knot right there. If you don't like how your knot is, use your needle and just poke it into the knot and you can pull that knot right out. Now we're ready to assemble the journal, but I'm going to show you a quick trick on how I'm going to make some extra space in mine. I have moved all my binder clips down to the spine end of my journal pages and I didn't take them off. Normally I take them off and toss them to the side. But I'm just going to move all of these down to the spine edge because these are going to stack up and they're going to make some space in my journal. When you decorate your journal, you're going to add a lot of thickness to it. So what I'm doing is letting these binder clips kind of stack up on each other and create some thickness and create some space. So I don't pull this spine too tight. Now, if you don't have extra binder clips to do this, that's perfectly fine. You can add some cardboard or chipboard or anything you want kind of inside of the pages and create some space that way. So next we need to figure out how long to make our 3 pieces of ribbon. I know that I want to overlap the inside covers by about 2 inches. I like the look of that. And I know I want to leave enough space so that if I add a bunch of thick elements to my journal, there's lots of room for this to expand. And this is about 1 3/4 inches. So I'll add 2 inches for each cover panel. So that's 4, 5, and 3/4. So that is how long I am going to cut my ribbon. Right about there. And I'm going to use pinking shears on mine just to get kind of an uneven edge. And let me trim up this end as well. And we need 2 more. All right, I'm going to take my 3 ribbons. I'm going to grab my signatures, make sure they are in the correct order. I've kind of rifled through and made sure, especially since I'm telling a little bit of a story in mine, I want to make sure they're all in the right order. And I am just going to thread these through the 3 appropriate spots on my journal spine. I'm going to flip mine over. I actually want the gold on the inside for my journal. I'm going to cover up the outside with a different ribbon to make it fancy, but I wanted that gold to show, and I'll show you here in a second. I want that gold to show in between the signatures. So whenever you're paging through, let's see if I can find it. There we go. That gold is going to pop through instead of the black. So I'm going to thread these through all 3 holes with all 3 ribbons. All right, I've got these in, and now you might stop here. You might leave these exposed strings. You might have a ribbon that looks really pretty on both sides, or you have a really pretty side facing out. But I'm going to take it a step further, and I'm going to layer this ribbon on top of this one. They're the same width, just over 1.5 inches. So I'm going to cut some pieces, I think the same length. And I can always trim these up if I don't like how it looks. So I'm experimenting just a little bit here, so bear with me. Let's do the exact same length. And I've got some damage on this here, so I'm going to cut that off, and I'll use that to collage with later. All right, so I'm going to cut my 5 3/4 inches. I'll cut 3 of these. I have my 3 pieces, and I'm going to start attaching these to my straps. I'm just putting a piece of chipboard down to protect my papers, and I'm going to grab my Beacon Fabri-Tac. Now, I'm not going to glue across the whole spine area. You could, but I want to leave a little movement so that this has room to expand and contract, or the pages can kind of shift around as I'm working on the journal. So I'm just going to glue maybe this last inch, and I'm just going to pair them up like so. And I can always tuck a little more glue down in here later if I feel like I need to. And then I'm going to flip this over and do the same thing on the other side. Make sure that they're nice and flat, because you don't want them to buckle because they're different lengths or they're not lining up properly. I'd rather fall a little short here than have them buckling or doing something strange on the outside. And this one has really fallen short for some reason. We're going to just work with it. You can see I make mistakes too. Measuring has never been my strong point. I think that's going to be okay once we attach it to the inside of the journal. And now we're ready to attach the covers. Let's make sure that our pages are faced the correct direction. They are. You can see that gold ribbon peeking through as I page through the journal. It's really pretty. I like that. Got the nice decorative ribbon on the outside. Now I'm just going to attach these like so right onto my journal. Now, if you end up with them being a little uneven, and you can see mine did end up just a touch uneven, don't worry about it. You can cover this up. You can put a piece of trim right down over the ends of this and make it look really pretty, and that's probably what I'll end up doing. So I'm going to glue these right down onto my panel. I'm just going to apply glue to the ends. We're going to leave a little space between this signature and the panel, again, so there's room to accommodate decorations, the thickness of the ribbon, all of that. So you don't want to butt everything right up against everything else on this. And let's lay this down. Center it up a little better. I'm going to press these down. And then I'm just going to sit this right on top for a moment and make sure everything's lining up really nicely. And I'm going to let that dry before I try to attach the other one. All right, I'm going to repeat this for the other side, again, making sure that everything is facing the correct direction. And I'm going to grab my glue, and just as a little extra tip, I did end up putting some glue along this edge here right on the cover. Move this away so you can see. You want this to be tight here. So I did end up putting some glue right here, because I just glued the ends and then I came back and I added some more glue underneath. So you're going to want to look for areas that are maybe not stuck as well as they could be on this. Glue on all the ends. 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to tip this up. Try to center it as best I can and press them down. And then let's see how that ended up. So the easiest way to let this lay flat and dry is just open up right to your center and then make sure everything is lined up, that your covers are in line, top and bottom, and let all this glue dry really, really well before moving on. So as this is drying, I've decided to make a small adjustment. Sometimes we learn as we go. And because I doubled up my ribbon, there's a little bit of buckling right up here by the cover. So I've decided to put glue between the layers all the way up to the edge here and put them back down. And then I'm going to close this and let it dry again. So I'm going to lift it up, press them down nice and tight, and then close it and let those dry. And I did that on the front already, and I've got a much flatter ribbon there. And you're going to get a little bit of buckling. You're going to have some space here, but that's because you haven't filled your journal up yet. So I've taken all my clips out. You can see that as the journal fills up, these are going to push back up against that. So I know a lot of you don't like when this alligator's out in the front, and I have created that space with this method so that it will lay flatter at the end of my project. Now, this does have a little bit of wiggle to it. Again, I think that will go away as you fill the journal up. It's actually not too much. It's not too bad. But there is my open spine binding with my secret panel cover, front and back. So the last thing I'd like to note is I did add some ribbon to the inside cover just to finish it off. And I will also be doing more decoration on the outside of this journal as I start working on it myself. So these finishing touches are things that you can decide to make this journal your own. I hope you've enjoyed this project. If so, please like and subscribe if you'd like to see more ideas like this one. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.